What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to be checking out 6 most racist countries in the world. Without wasting your time, let's get to it.
Racism is defined as prejudice or discrimination against people of different races.
Okay.
A racist person believes that his or her race is superior, while other races are inferior. Racism in a given area isn't something that can be measured like population or area. Polls and surveys can be used, but these aren't always accurate. Other data, such as instances of hate crimes and hate speech, can also be used to determine where racism is most prevalent. In this video, I'm going to name 6 countries that are extremely racist. Number 1 in this list is Morocco.
Morocco?
Behind these
Africa?
gates at Rabat Central Bus Station, a young migrant from Senegal was knifed to death on August 12. He lived in this poor neighborhood of the Moroccan capital. Here, like in many other Moroccan cities and towns, migrants hailing from sub-Saharan Africa face daily acts of violence.
I went out to buy something, so I saw three guys, three Moroccans, and they attacked me with a knife. They took my phone and some of my money.
Kingsley told us he felt lucky as he only suffered superficial knife wounds, but he said racism was rampant.
We are facing a lot of
And this is an African country.
racism here in Morocco. They don't like we blacks. We don't have right for many things. You can't sit, you can't talk to a woman. You cannot talk to a woman. It's not allowed here in Morocco. They don't give out job to black people. Even if you have the qualification, even you are capable of doing the job, they can't give the job to you because you're a black man here in Morocco.
His
That's
outrage over constant discrimination is shared by many other migrants.
Moroccans are very racist even towards each other, North with South, Amazigh and Arabs, black and white, and so on. It's ridiculous. Morocco is very anti-black, anti-Asian, and also there is racism established between people from different regions. There actually is more ignorance than racism in Morocco, and you will encounter more racism if you're Moroccan than if you're a foreigner. Let me explain. If you are a foreigner, then having any skin color apart from black will make you safe from racism, or at least obvious one. If you are black, then you will certainly face racism, but it's more some sort of passive-aggressive racism, and sometimes can be attacked or denied service anywhere. I know of where racism led to denied service when a man wrote that he will not rent his flat to black people. The community of black students living in Morocco always live together, and that shows how much Moroccan people can be not very welcoming to some, but it can be a language problem more than a race problem because they only speak English or French, and not all people here speak those. Now, if you are a Moroccan, you may have encountered some form of racism, as there is a huge ignorance, and sometimes racism, depending on where you come from in Morocco. Berber, Rifi, Arab, Fassi, Sahrawi, or Jebli. Now you need to know that since Morocco doesn't have that much migrants, they are not taught about racism problems because they are a homogenous group that has not come in contact with other races that much. And number 2 on this list is Egypt.
Egypt?
Egyptians are mad.
All in Africa?
And you won't believe why. They've actually sued Netflix because Netflix used a mixed race woman, mixed with white and black, to portray Cleopatra. Because they say that she is too black and it's not the right representation of Cleopatra, basically.
There are a lot of different types of racisms in Egypt, but when it comes to black people, the ones who suffer from the brunt of the anti-black discrimination in Egypt are refugees from South Sudan and Darfur. Their conditions are worsened by their poverty and lack of knowledge of Arabic, which makes them more vulnerable to abuse and discrimination. But the most common form of racism here is anti-Semitism. Negative portrayals and stereotyping of Jews are widespread since the 1940s. There are 2 main reasons for the prevalence of anti-Semitism in Egypt: Arab-Israeli conflict and religious fundamentalism. Jews are often linked to Israel, and Israel's history with the Arab world is not a secret, which in turn fuels hatred of Jews, and they're consequently viewed with suspicion and distrust.
This was
As for the religious crackheads, their numbers have been increasing since the 70s. A number of historical events such as the 6 Days War, Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and Islamic Revolution in Iran resulted in an extremist reaction manifested in the rise of ultra-conservative Puritan movements in Sunni Muslim countries, including Egypt. This is the second main driver of anti-Semitism. Egyptian Christians were, and still are actually, deeply affected by such movements as well. They have been marginalized and treated as second-class citizens ever since the government started pandering to the aforementioned religious fundamentalists in the 70s. The same applies to Muslim minorities, Shias, Ahmadis, etc., and atheists. Aside from the racism against Jews and religious minorities, ethnic groups also suffer from a multitude of problems in Egypt. For example, the Nubians and Bedouins were forced from their ancestral lands in Aswan and Sinai decades ago. They're yet to be compensated. Sometimes they're treated with contempt, either due to their skin color in case of the former, or due to their nomadic lifestyle in case of the latter. The stereotyping of Fellahin and Saidis as ignorant people with funny accents by urban city dwellers is not unheard of, and the Berbers of Siwa are almost forgotten by the state. Number 3 on this list is Lebanon. These people are very racist. They don't like dark-skinned people, especially black or Indian people. They even call
Why always black or dark-skinned people?
black people a bed.
In Lebanon, for a very huge part of the society, the word black, so if you're saying I'm a black person, they'd be like hey abde, which means slave. That's a literal translation of it, so it's just in our vocabulary. And like how do people say like the vacuum cleaner is a hoover? So they think okay, so a person that works at a house, like the maid or the helper, Selankiye or Filipiniye or so those are the terms people use. So unless families really teach their kids, that's not a term to be used, the kid will use it. So I'm not blaming the kids, but we need to have like more awareness about this. And maybe people think, it's not such a huge issue because Lebanon isn't diverse, but Lebanese people are going la barra, let's say, or people min barra am yiju lahun. So we need to make this an issue because it is, it's those minor issues that add up to make the bigger picture. And right now, to be honest, I'm sure so many podcasts and so many people talk about like how horrible of a country Lebanon is for like, people min bada or people of color or stuff like that. It's so sad. Like ana بالنسبة لي Lebanon is like a huge part of who I am, and I feel so bad what I hear negative things about that.
There is a lot of racism in Lebanon. They even call black people a bed. This word means black slaves. And this word is used quite a lot in Lebanon. They hate black Syrian people and also really hate black Sudan people. If they see them on the street, they see them as less of human beings, and they try to pretend not to notice their existence, while they would treat white people as they would any Lebanese citizen. I visited Lebanon 3 times, and I have traveled across the country, so I guess my 2 cents may count. The urban population in Lebanon tends to show a classist behavior towards others. You get judged based on what you wear and how you look. If you are dapper and well-dressed in a suit, you would be treated well. However, if you are in jeans and casuals, you would be assumed as a laborer or some blue-collar migrant worker and won't be treated nicely. There have been cases like when I was walking with
I wear suits to sleep.
my friend who is Indian and dark in complexion. He was literally stopped and held back by some random Lebanese asking him where he was going and so on. Then another friend of ours came to our rescue. He told us that they stopped my Indian friend because of security concerns as he is a foreigner. However, if you are a white, you would never have this issue. Indians here in Lebanon are by default presumed as laborers and treated as such, unless you prove your status as a white-collar worker. So if you are an Indian or black and you need to go to Lebanon, you need to dress in a nice suit in order to get accepted. However, I have some Lebanese colleagues who are good, but again, it takes some good effort by an Indian to break the glass ceiling. Number 4 on this list is South Korea.
South Korea?
I'm going to be honest. They are
I like South Korea. I like South Koreans.
very racist. Vast majority of Koreans are racists, even more than white nationalists in America. Any foreigner who lived more than a few months in Korea or tried to find work there will say the same thing. Believe it or not, but discrimination against other races is legal in Korea and cannot be punished.
Legal.
If you have no contract, it is perfectly fine for your boss to fire you simply because of race alone. If you're white, you're not going to have a problem. You'll be basking in privilege.
Okay, I think at this point I should identify as a white man. It's like white people are having so much enjoyment in every country they go, and black people get to suffer.
If you're black, brown, dark-skinned, you could possibly face quite a lot of discrimination. One of my black friends was an English teacher in Korea. Her contract was revoked for the sole reason that the children found her scary. She was replaced by a blonde white teacher. Many Koreans here on YouTube will try to deny that they are mostly racists, but they are just trying to close the closet door before the skeletons come tumbling out. I have seen Africans given nasty looks in the streets of Itaewon, racial slurs hurled at Chinese, Japanese, South Asians, Latinos, Middle Easterners, Slavs, and even white Americans. What I find funny is that Koreans often complain that whites are racists, but honestly, during my stay in Korea, I have witnessed more open racism in Korea than America. Based on my understanding, discrimination is the way to establish social hierarchy in Korean societies. Koreans often discriminate against each other. Elders picking on youngsters, seniors picking on freshmen, intertribal discriminations, and so forth. Racial discrimination by Koreans is basically telling foreigners to know their place. Koreans prefer segregation over diversity, the so-called pure blood Korea ideology. Koreans dislike anything that is strange or foreign. For example, let's say you went to tour Thailand and it's time for lunch. Where would you eat? Probably a local Thai restaurant. But Koreans almost never do that. Instead, Koreans hop onto a car and drive 2 hours to find a nearest Korean restaurant. Let that
Really?
sink in.
Koreans
Racial
tell me.
and ethnic mixing is a taboo over there, and pretty much explains why interracial and interethnic children are treated so harshly in Korea. Number 5 on this list is Libya.
Libya.
Lebanon
Africa has the majority. You'd be so surprised.
is relieved to be back home in Somalia.
You'd think
3
he's
years
in
ago,
Africa.
he tried to migrate to Europe, but he never made it. Instead, he was kidnapped by smugglers in Libya and sold as a slave.
Like an animal, I was sold 4 times in open markets in Libya. The last time I was sold for $10,000. I was tortured every day.
Liban's story isn't unique. Amnesty International released a report recently describing how Somali refugees were being tortured in Libyan detention camps.
I've read about
Said
this.
they were held against their will by armed groups in exchange for money. Hundreds were reportedly sold for as little as $400, a far cry from the journey these migrants had hoped for.
Well, they
full
treat some
human.
people really bad. Usually people who want to go to Europe and they go through from Libya. So passing from Libya, some Libyans take advantages on them. They basically do anything they want to. They rape them, treat them like they're slaves, and they take all their money by telling them they are helping them to go to Europe with their ships. I know some kind of discrimination. Number 6 on this list is Dubai. Trust me, I have been there.
What happened? Was Libya too bad that they had to cut it out?
Don't be fooled by the Dubai that you see on TV.
Because when I came to Dubai in 2012, the situation was worse, like terrible. It was pure racism to your face. Okay, so when I came in 2012, in situations like this, when you're looking for a job, they tell it to your face that they do not want black people. Okay, so even when you're called for an interview, you might not even be called for an interview right there as they receive your CV, or or maybe for some reason you call them up that you want to fill a particular position. They let you know straight up that they are looking for a certain type of people.
They are very racist.
I've heard about that.
Otherwise, they
I have
wouldn't
friends
have
in
legal
Dubai.
and constitutional rights that differ for Arabs and non-Arabs, for Muslims and non-Muslims. Racism isn't a social phenomenon. In many countries, it is legal and embedded in the Constitution. In the Middle East, particularly, there is racism at every level, based on race, discrimination between locals and foreigners, and of course, massive discrimination between Muslims and non-Muslims. Dubai is racist society. There is definite pecking order of nationalities. It probably does not affect tourists on the beach, but if you need something extra, it is much easier if you are white. My car was returned usually faster than my Indian friends from valet parking. For an example, big organizations like to employ whites Western expats for the top positions for running their businesses, but Indians/Pakistanis or other Southeast Asians need to work extremely hard to be considered for senior leadership roles. The color of skin does matter a lot over there. Racism is wrong because you are denying a person a chance to be human and to contribute to the world. And if you are white, you have seen far more of your people screw up than minorities in your personal life. And yet some of you have decided to segregate and live in gated communities anyway. Racism hurts individuals when it denies them opportunities in jobs, education, housing, medical care, safety from violence. Do you think it's okay to not hire someone to take photographs because they have an outie belly button or attached earlobes? Why would it be okay to discriminate on the basis of skin color? Racism is wrong from a moral standpoint because it is a fundamentally abhorrent behavior. It rests on the oppression of a group or members of a group, and racist actions perpetuate the suffering that comes as a result of that oppression. It goes against the foundation of moral reasoning because any benefit that you gain from it comes at the expense of someone else. Racism is wrong from a personal standpoint because I wouldn't want to be in the position of someone where the cards were automatically stacked against me. I don't want to live in a world where people are automatically seen as criminals because they look a certain way. I don't want to support the institutions that reward people for explicitly or implicitly discriminating against others for any reason, even if they can justify it to themselves. And I don't want to accept injustice in the world when there are many ways to fight against it. Well, this is the end of the video. If you think that my video was helpful, then...
Okay, I'll put the link to the her channel in the description so you can go check it out. But I just want to say, okay, maybe I should start by asking you guys, what do you think? Are all the countries mentioned racist countries? Honestly, to be frank, I thought Japan was going to be in there because I haven't been to Japan before, but I've heard so much about Japan. Just hearsays, I don't know how true it might be. So I thought Japan might be there. I was surprised to see South Korea because I have a lot of South Korean friends and a lot of South Korean people around me basically, and it feels like they're really loving. Maybe I just don't know. Could be the people I know are just very loving. But racism is not like a general thing. It's just a few people and their beliefs and their cultures and how they were raised. They just become racist and probably don't even know they are. So let me know your thoughts. It's horrible. What was more disappointing to me in that video was the fact that African countries probably took the majority. African countries were like 4, I think 3 or 4 in the whole video. And you wouldn't think that would be the case in Africa, especially when Africans are the ones who are always talking about racism the most. And turns out a lot of it is happening in Africa, Libya, Egypt. Which one was the other one? Morocco. It's crazy. It's really crazy. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. That was a long video. I don't want to talk so much. So tell me what you think. And if there's any country that surprised you or you think any country should be added to that list, feel free to let me know in the comment section. That being said, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a wonderful day. Peace.